7 cruise lines just quietly slipped off the rankings that matter. And if you've got a booking with any of them, or you're thinking about making one, you need to hear this before you step foot on a gangway. I want to be clear about something right away. This isn't about ships sinking, or norovirus outbreaks, or the kind of dramatic headlines that cruise content usually uses to pull you in. This is about something more subtle, and honestly, more damaging to your wallet and your vacation. It's about the slow, quiet erosion of quality that happens when cruise lines stop earning your loyalty and start assuming they already have it. I've spent the last several months digging through passenger satisfaction surveys, industry analyst reports, consumer advocacy data, and first-hand accounts from people who've sailed, with every line on this list in the past 18 months. What I found wasn't a single smoking gun. It was a pattern. 7 different brands, 7 different stories, but the same underlying disease. And I'm going to name them, explain exactly what changed, and tell you what to do if one of them has your money right now. Pay attention to the last one especially. That ranking drop should change how you think about cruise loyalty programs entirely. Let's talk about Carnival first, because their situation is where this whole investigation started. Carnival has always been the entry point, the fun ship, the brand that made cruising accessible to people who never thought they'd cruise. And for a long time, that positioning worked because they were genuinely delivering a solid experience at an honest price. But something shifted around 2022 and accelerated through 2023 and into the present. The food quality complaints started piling up in a way they hadn't before. Not one-off gripes, but consistent across fleet patterns showing up in review aggregators and consumer reports alike. Portion sizes shrank, specialty restaurant upcharges multiplied, staff-to-passenger ratios, which are one of the clearest indicators of service quality on any ship, dropped noticeably on their newer vessels. The cruise critic community, which trends generous toward the mass market lines, started giving Carnival scores in the mid-range that they hadn't seen since before their major fleet expansion. Here's the practical reality. If you're already booked with Carnival, you're not necessarily in for a terrible time, but lower your expectations from where they were 2 or 3 years ago, and budget more than you think you'll need for specialty dining, because the main dining room experience has measurably declined. If you're comparing options and Carnival is one of them, I'd steer you toward alternatives at this moment unless price is the absolute deciding factor. Royal Caribbean held the top spot in passenger satisfaction rankings for years. And their recent slide is genuinely surprising. Not because the ships got worse, but because the value equation broke down. Royal Caribbean bet heavily on megaships, Icon of the Seas being the most visible example. And those ships are engineering marvels. Nobody's disputing that. But the cost structure that supports those ships requires extracting more revenue per passenger, which means the nickel and diming that travelers have complained about across the industry hits harder on Royal Caribbean now than it used to. Shore excursion markups have increased significantly. Beverage packages, which used to feel like a reasonable add-on, now feel like a mandatory tax if you drink anything beyond water. Independent analysts who track cruise pricing found that the all-in cost of a Royal Caribbean cruise, once you include the packages that actually make the experience feel complete, has risen faster than their competitors over the past 2 years. Their ranking didn't fall because the ships are bad. It fell because the gap between the advertised price and the realistic total cost got wide enough that passengers felt deceived. If you're a Royal Caribbean loyalist, I'm not saying jump ship, pun intended. I'm saying go in with your eyes open. Book the packages up front when they're discounted. And don't let the base fare lull you into thinking that's what you're actually spending. MSC Cruises came out of nowhere to absolutely dominate the European market, and their growth story is legitimately impressive. But here's what nobody tells you about brands that grow faster than their operational infrastructure can support. The cracks show up in the details. MSC expanded their fleet at a pace that required rapid crew hiring and accelerated training timelines. The result, according to multiple passenger satisfaction surveys from 2024, was inconsistent. Service, not uniformly bad, but unpredictable in a way that premium cruise travelers find frustrating. You might get an excellent cabin steward, Or you might get someone who's clearly still learning the job. You might get an attentive dining room team, or you might wait 45 minutes for your entree. That inconsistency is death to a brand's ranking, because reviews reward reliability above almost everything else. MSC also struggled with their communications and customer service infrastructure during port disruption events over the past year. Families who dealt with itinerary changes reported difficulty getting clear, timely information, and that experience sticks with people in ways that even a great ship can't fully overcome. Now, Norwegian Cruise Line. This one's a bit more complicated, and I want to be honest about the nuance here. Norwegian built their identity around freestyle cruising. Eat when you want, dress how you want, no rigid schedules. That's genuinely appealing to a certain kind of traveler, and it made Norwegian feel different from the more structured lines. But the freestyle model, as Norwegian now practices it, has quietly become a vehicle for upselling. Because when there's no fixed dining structure, every alternative restaurant becomes a separate charge. The freedom isn't actually free. Norwegian's ranking dropped in large part because passengers reported feeling like the flexible experience they were promised required purchasing multiple add-ons just to eat well. The included dining options received consistently lower marks in recent satisfaction data, which creates a situation where the main appeal of the brand, flexibility, comes with a hidden price tag that passengers only fully understand after they've paid for it. What happened to Holland America is harder to talk about, because this is a line that used to stand for something genuinely distinct. Holland America was the refined choice, the adult-oriented, destination-focused line for travelers who wanted experience over entertainment. The culinary program was legitimately excellent. The Culinary Arts Center partnerships they built were industry-leading. And a lot of that has been quietly scaled back. The dining with the chef experiences became less frequent. Entertainment programming leaned into trends rather than leaning into the brand's strength. Longtime Holland America passengers, and there's a passionate, loyal community of them, started expressing the kind of disappointment that's worse than ordinary complaints. It's grief. They're mourning a product that used to exist. When your most loyal customers feel that way, the rankings follow. Celebrity Cruises is the one that surprised me most, and I'll tell you exactly why. Everything on paper still looks premium. The ships are beautiful. The marketing is sophisticated. The brand alignment with luxury is consistent and professionally executed. But passengers who have sailed Celebrity in the past 2 years and then compared notes with their experiences from 3 or 4 years ago are consistently noting a gap in the food and beverage quality that the marketing hasn't caught up to. The fine dining venues that used to define Celebrity's premium positioning have reportedly seen menu consolidation and quality reductions that regular passengers picked up on immediately. It's the kind of thing where the Instagram shots still look the same, but the actual experience in the dining room has shifted. And in a market where Celebrity sits right at the edge of the luxury tier, those differences matter enormously to the people paying those prices. I know that sounds like a small thing. It's not. At the price point Celebrity occupies, you're paying for consistency and quality in the experience, not just the aesthetic. When that slips, it's not a minor inconvenience. It's a breach of the promise the brand made to you when you handed over $4,000 or $5,000 per person. Costa Cruises. This one's been in quiet freefall since 2023, and the story is complicated by corporate restructuring that passengers are only now fully feeling. Costa is part of the Carnival Corporation umbrella, and decisions made at the corporate level, fleet consolidations, route reductions in certain markets, staffing model changes, trickled down to the passenger experience in ways that aren't visible in their marketing. European travelers who have been loyal Costa passengers for years reported itinerary cuts, reduced onboard programming, and a general sense that the product they'd loved had been streamlined in ways that served the corporation's margin requirements more than the passenger's experience. Ranking drops for Costa in both European and North American markets in recent surveys reflect that gap. And then there's Princess Cruises. I saved Princess for last because their situation is the most instructive, and honestly, the most worth understanding if you're a frequent cruiser with any line, not just Princess. Princess built one of the strongest loyalty programs in the industry. The Captain Circle program has tiers that genuinely reward repeat passengers, and for years, those loyal passengers were Princess's most powerful marketing asset. Word-of-mouth recommendations from Elite and Platinum members carried enormous weight. But here's what happens when a brand leans too hard on loyalty. They start making product decisions with the assumption that loyal passengers will absorb the changes. Princess has raised the price of loyalty program benefits relative to what they require. They've added costs to experiences that used to be included for higher tier members. And the passengers who notice this first are the exact passengers whose opinions carry the most weight in the community. The people who've sailed 14, 17, 20 plus times and who talk to everyone on the ship. The loyalty program, which was supposed to be the moat that protected Princess's ranking, became the mechanism through which their most influential customers felt taken for granted. That's a very specific kind of brand damage, and it takes a long time to repair. Here's the thing that connects all 7 of these lines, and I promised I'd show you the pattern. Every single one of these ranking drops traces back to the same root cause: revenue extraction replacing value creation. The entire cruise industry is under enormous financial pressure coming out of several very difficult years, and the response from almost every major line has been to find new ways to generate revenue from existing passengers rather than find new ways to genuinely improve the product. Smaller portions, more upcharges, reduced inclusions, loyalty program value erosion. It's a rational corporate response to financial pressure, and it's a deeply frustrating experience for passengers. The good news is that this is a correctable problem. Brands that recognize the drift and invest in genuine quality recovery tend to come back in the rankings. And some of the lines on this list are already showing early signs of course correction. But they haven't corrected yet, and your vacation budget shouldn't be the experiment. What do you do with this information practically? A few things. First, for any cruise you're considering booking, read the most recent reviews, not from 2021 or 2022, but from the last 6 months. The cruise landscape has changed enough that older reviews are genuinely misleading. Second, before you book specialty dining packages or beverage packages, calculate what you actually consume and compare that to the package cost honestly. Third, if you're a loyal passenger to any of the lines I mentioned, consider whether your loyalty is being rewarded with value or just with the feeling of status. Those are very different things. You now know something that most people who are about to book a cruise don't know. You have a clearer picture of which brands are genuinely delivering versus which ones are coasting on reputation right now. That's a real advantage when you're spending real money. Drop a comment and tell me which of these lines you've sailed recently and whether your experience matched what I described, or if you had a great experience that pushes back on what I found. I read every comment, and your first-hand accounts genuinely help me keep this research accurate and up-to-date. And if this shifted your thinking about an upcoming booking, I'd genuinely like to know that too. There's more coming on this topic. Specifically, I'm looking into which lines are actually climbing the rankings right now and why. That story is worth knowing just as much as this one.